This is Vanshika.
Hi, this is Shruti.
This is Really Balanced. Welcome to our podcast. So, today we have with us a very special guest. He has been a part of the top 0.1% who make it to the Tata Group's flagship leadership program, now working as a business manager at Titan. He has also earned a political science degree from Ashoka University and an MBA from IIM Calcutta. He has also been a national level swimmer, a state level swimmer, and a national level badminton player.
Additionally, he has been a semi-finalist at FedEx India COE Talent. So now you all know the reason why we had to stalk his LinkedIn profile for a whole hour last night. He has achieved so much at just the age of 24 that it is difficult to summarize all of this in just a few minutes. So, hi Anindya, welcome to our podcast. Would you like to say something before we move ahead?
Just thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me to your podcast. Let's hope that this goes out to the people who need it.
Okay, great. So the first question I have for you is, how did you develop an interest towards badminton and swimming?
Well, I didn't develop. So essentially, I wasn't interested in school, as in the academics part of it. And I'd been into sports from an early age. Like I tried out a lot of different sports when I was like around first grade, second grade. And I just really fell in love with badminton, and that's how I started, developing my skills in that arena. And as for swimming, uh, while I did reach the state level, I knew that it's not something that I can scale up. As in terms of if you look at Indian genetics, we aren't really built for swimming on the international scene. I mean, the least height you need to be is like 6'1", 6'2" to make it. And with badminton, it was working out well for me, so I chose badminton over swimming, and that's what I did for a long time. And that's pretty much it. So
All right, the next question is, how did you get the time to do so much at just the age of 24? Like you have done so many case competitions, internships, and then badminton, swimming, along with managing academics, going to Ashoka, and then IIM Calcutta. Like, how did you manage all of this?
okay, like, see, when you say it like that, it seems like I did a lot in a very short time. However, all of these achievements were at very different times. Like, I wasn't doing all of this at the same time. Like, if I was playing badminton at the national level, I wouldn't have been able to do it with IIM Calcutta. So it's all at different phases and different. So I was doing only one thing at a time. So yes, over time it seems like a lot, but like it was all at different phases. So it's not, I wasn't some super genius multitasking across fields. So I did one thing at a time. So when I retired from badminton, that's when I gave cat step into MBA. If I hadn't retired from badminton, there was no way I was going to do the rest of whatever I have on my LinkedIn. And as for the
Okay,
case
all
comps
right.
part, I mean, if you take any average B school student, they're bound to have a few case comps on their CV.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so moving ahead, tell us about your three learnings from IIM Calcutta.
Key learnings. Okay, so of course, one thing that an MBA atmosphere gives you is it lets you connect with a lot of people from the corporate world. Not just in terms of alumni base, it keeps you in an environment where you're constantly exposed to people from different sectors, and you get exposed to ideas that you hadn't been, in touch with. So for me, I shifted from an arts background to an MBA. So in my undergrad, I wasn't exposed to such an environment, right? It was a very different research-based sort of environment where everybody was into their own thing, but corporate wasn't really a like now. Ashoka has a lot of placements and jobs and preparation for placements and all of that. But when I was in Ashoka, it was a very different environment. Most of my batchmates went for a master's degree abroad, and it was mostly specialized, like an MA in, like, let's say, like an advanced IR degree or something of that sort. So it was very specialized, research based. I wasn't exposed to that until like went to the MBA program. So I would say key learning wise, exposure is like your main game, and then you have whatever else you learn in academics, case comms, and so on.
All right. We'll talk a little bit about CV building now. So, talking of an undergrad student, let's say they want to do an MBA after their graduation and then work at top organizations. So, what's more important on their CV, like extra co-curriculars or activities, or like academic performance, CGPA and all? What's more important?
So it depends on which sector you're targeting because each sector has a different set of requirements. If you're targeting finance or consulting, I would say like you should have a heavy focus on your grades. because that is a differentiating factor for these two sectors because they do care a lot about your grades, like your 10th, 12th, and your UG CGPA. So they have to be a priority for you for these two sectors. If you're aiming for marketing, product management, or your typical startups, BD roles, then you need to showcase your CV in a very like a CV should tell the recruiter that you're an extrovert and you're a good person, like you're good with people management, right? So in that case, they would tend to look a little more at your internship experiences, your positions of responsibility or extracurriculars. And of course, internship experiences are, I would say, key for most sectors. Like they're going to look at what you've done already. Like your past is your main indicator as whether or not you would be a good fit for a role.
Okay, so moving ahead, what are some of the red flags which recruiters notice in a CV but students often miss out?
First of all, I don't think so. I don't know whether you guys have it in your colleges, but and I doubt that it's there at the UG level. But most students at the UG level have to build the CV on their own, right? Or does the PlaceCom give you a format to follow? Do they in your colleges,
In our
SRCC
colleges, we
and
build it on our own.
Yeah, the
right? So
placement
that's
cell
where
provides us.
a format.
They, yeah, they do.
Right. So in some UG colleges, they do provide a format, but they don't strictly monitor how your CV looks like. Right. So they don't do hygiene checks on your CV. So you'll see a lot of red flags within. So by red flags, I don't mean in terms of what you've achieved, but rather in the way you've structured your CV. So the first and foremost issue with undergrad CVs is that they're too descriptive, right? So when I say descriptive, what I mean is, I'll give you two examples. One is you talk about your internship in a way where you showcase what you've learned. So you'll see sentences like, I learned this, I learned that, I understood this, I understood that. And that's not really what recruiters are looking for. Recruiters are looking more for what was your impact, right? So what did you do for the company? And if you're able to quantify it, if you're able to show it in numbers, that's what would help them out in selecting you, because then they can see a real impact, right? Like so while a lot of people fake numbers and like everybody, like your typical social media internships, people are going to say, oh, I boosted this by 40%, boosted that by 60%. So it's not about that, but if you have actually done some work and if you're able to put it in numbers, that's what they're looking for. Also, there's a lot of other hygiene factors with CVs which a lot of people don't tend to follow. So for example, a very simple one is so companies expect one pages, right? One single page, and that's uniform for UG students, for MBA students, for even if it's like say somebody who has 6 to 7 years of work experience. Ideally, they want you to express all of it in one page. Now you have a limited space in a one page format, right? Like at max, you'll probably be able to squeeze in 30 to 40 lines. So a lot of people end up, especially in UG, they end up wasting a lot of space. So you'll see lines where like you've written a sentence and then there's like two words in the next line and that entire line is empty. So you end up wasting a lot of space. Also, a lot of people don't know how to utilize bolding, right? So they end up bolding, like I don't know, for some reason they end up bolding a lot of power verbs. कि जहाँ पे भी spearheading लिखा है उसको bold कर दो. जहाँ पे भी you know did generated लिखा है उसको bold कर दो. So they look at the Harvard list of power verbs. They'll bold whatever they found on the list. And that's not how you're supposed to do it. Your bolding is supposed to highlight your impact. So ideally, you'll see in a post MBA CV, you should ideally be seeing something like. So what is the use of bolding, right? So when you bold something, it's supposed to draw attention to that. Your recruiter's attention should be drawn to it immediately, and those bolded words or figures should be able to sum up the entire line, even if the recruiter doesn't read the entire line. Because at the end of the day, the recruiter is not going to go through your entire CV word by word. They're going to look at it left to right, upar se, like at best 10 seconds, right? So in 10 seconds, how can you draw their attention to your CV? That's the goal of when you that's what you have to keep in mind when you're building a CV, because your recruiter is someone who's going through 400 CVs a day during campus placement. So that's something a lot of people forget. Also, text-based formats are appreciated way more than your typical Canva-looking formats where you have a photo, you have, I don't know, a lot of heavy design work going on, a lot of colors. That's not required. That does not make your CV more attractive. In fact, a lot of these CVs get rejected by HR softwares.
I actually have a story related to that. Like the placement cell, they told us for the recruitment process, they had a stage that we had to submit our resume, and they did provide
Mhm.
us with a format like it was text based, as you told. And
Yeah.
my class students, like everyone, they thought that this is the shittiest resume someone can send. Like the format was just way too bad because we see the templates on Canva with the interesting like the colors and all the spaces is so good. So most of us went ahead with the Canva template and ignored the placement cells format completely. And then later on, we get to know that what we did was completely wrong and we get rejected because of that.
Right, so there is a space for the Canva type CVs as well. Like if you go into very creative roles, like if you're say going into a design role or a advertising space where creativity would be appreciated, right? If you've made your CV in a appealing way, design wise. I mean, like I don't know if you guys have seen it. Like there was someone who applied for a designer role at Netflix, and the CV was Netflix themed, like it was black and red and but that's applicable only to very select roles. So if you look at your typical management type jobs, they're not going to appreciate that, right? So they want it to be neat, clean, and professional, crisp. That's what they're looking for. Like you need to look at the CV, and within 10 to 20 seconds, you need to know the rough outline of what you've done. What have the candidates done so far? So if you have very complex design wale CVs, it's not going to help. Also, there's no space on CVs for summaries. Like I don't, I see a lot of UG CVs that have summaries. I am a student here. These are my passions. These are my hobbies.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about your hobbies. I mean, like, of course, in some cases, like they might ask you about your hobbies in interviews and so on, or they might have an application form where they ask you about your hobbies, but your CV is not supposed to contain stuff like that. Also, a lot of people have a skill section, right, within the CV where they put in MS Office, communication as a skill. It's not going to help. Like because your whatever your skills are, they should be represented through your achievements and not you claiming that this is a skill for me, right? So if you say, "Ki, okay, I'm great at Excel, or I'm great at say Python," what have you done for it? Like, did you win something? Did you do an internship where you used it? How do you prove it? You can't just say, "Ki, ha, I am good at it and I know about it." So you can't do that.
All right. That was great. I got to learn a lot. मैंने अपने CV में skills भी mention किए थे, summary भी था, format also I use of Canva. I got to know. Okay, right. Talking about case competitions, we have mentioned the word case competitions a lot of time in this podcast already. So you have participated in a lot of case comps, as we got to know through your LinkedIn. And considering you opted for humanities in 12th grade and then went ahead with a pol science degree in Ashoka University. So, how did you participate in these case comps? Like, case competitions is something which the students from commerce background usually participate in. So, how did you get a nudge
I,
towards that?
I understand where you're coming from with that question, but I don't get it. Like a lot of arts grads see themselves at a handicap if they're going into an MBA. Ki, okay, we are at a natural disadvantage against, say, people from IITs or people from BCom honors backgrounds or BBA backgrounds, which is not necessarily the case. Like if you look at people from, say, tech backgrounds, right? What's their strength? Numbers. They're good at numbers. They're going to be better than you at statistics. They're going to be better at anything mathematical, right? Ideally. So that's where as an arts grad you have to cover a lot of ground. But if if you've been serious with your academics when you were an art student, ideally you should be better than them at organizational behavior type subjects and marketing oriented subjects, right? You should be better than them at speaking. You should be better in group discussions and so on. And GDs are a part of almost all marketing firms when they hire. GDs are essential round for all of them. So you should be outshining your IIT peers there. So I don't see it as it's just a different background. It's not necessarily a disadvantage. It's a bit of a disadvantage in CAT because 2 out of 3 sections are catering to people with mathematical backgrounds, but not really. So if you look at it that way, VRC has a 40% weightage, DLR and Quant has a 30-30 each weightage. So you do have somewhat of an advantage if you're able to cover even one out of those 2 sections, like out of DLR and Quant. So you can still cover it. But a lot of art students end up thinking कि नहीं हमसे नहीं होगा, and we are at a disadvantage, and that's where they end up losing. As for case competitions, again, what every case comp needs is, of course, you'll need statistical analysis and you'll need data work, but you'll also need to present it well, right? So, and most of these case competitions are team based, like a team of 3 or a team of 4. So an ideal combination would be, I mean, I would say a tech person or two tech people, one tech, one commerce, and one arts. So the arts person can help you more with presentation and how to represent your data well in terms of PPT making and when you're actually pitching it in your final round, if you reach the final round. And your tech people can help you with the data organization of it. So the best teams that I saw in my college as well as other campuses were those which had a good mix, right? So of course, that's not to say that three BTech students can't do it. Of course they can, or three commerce or three arts. But that's the thing. Like if you have a good mix, you have a higher chance of winning because you'll have different perspectives. That's why these colleges also have like marks for academic diversity, marks for gender diversity, so that you don't end up creating an echo chamber. Because then everyone will have the same opinion and the same approach and the same way of presenting.
Okay, all right. That you pretty much summarized everything. Okay, now I want you to explain it to our audience that what is the major difference between case competitions which happen in B school and corporate case competitions?
I mean, corporate case comps happen when you're in B school mostly. I mean, as a B school student, you're eligible for. Do you mean UG versus B school?
Yeah. UG case comps versus
Okay, okay.
corporate case comps.
Right. So the main difference is when corporate, like the people who are judging corporate case comps are either people who are working in those corporations or third party people hired to judge who are also people who are working. Right. Whereas in your inter college case comps at the UG level, the judges are also students. So the way of judging is very different. The expectations are very different. So what I've seen, especially in the DU circuit, is that they give you like a two slider or a three slider or a five slider limit, and they expect your PPT to be more of a research document than an actual presentation. Because in a corporate case comp, I mean, even if you look at consulting, for example, where PPTs are a dominant way of presenting, you'll see these slides like in real, like no, I don't want to say reality because right, post MBA, let's just say post MBA, the slides that you make, they are supposed to be representative of what you're about to present as opposed to being your entire pitch, right? So you are supposed to be the center of attention and not the slides themselves. So that's where the difference is, because UG level students are going to submit it as a research document. It's going to be super crowded. It's basically, you know, a, a Word document, but prettier and in a PPT wala ratio form factor. That's pretty much it, like on a slide. So, and plus you'll have things like a lot of people, a lot of UG competitions, they grade people on the number of frameworks they've used. Like, did you put in BCG matrix? Did you put in SWOT? Did you put in this? Did you put in that? And you will never see any of the corporate case competitions having those expectations, because if you put in a framework like SWOT, see, you're supposed to do a SWOT to come to a conclusion, but you're not supposed to actually show it, right? Or if you name it, oh, see, I have done a BCG matrix. That's not how it works in corporate case comps. Your slides are supposed to be crisp. They're supposed to point towards the conclusion. They're supposed to show the roadmap of how you came to your decision or whatever your conclusion for the case competition problem statement is. They're not supposed to be a complete research document. Whereas at the UG level, at least what I've seen in DU is they expect a research document, and that's how they shortlist for your final presentation rounds. So again, it's students judging students, so it's a different format. It's a different set of expectations. At the corporate case comp level and at the B school case comp level, the set of expectations are different. So typically what they'll expect is they'll expect a three slider where you have a crisp PPT and you can attach an appendix or an Excel file with all the workings as to how you came to your conclusion. Also at the UG level, the expectation is, I would say, it requires less depth and more breadth. Like if you look at DU based case competitions, they want you to cover a lot of things, but a little shallow. Whereas when you look at a B school or a corporate case comp, they expect you to provide a complete solution, which is deep. So you may not cover like all bases of your idea, but at least the basic. So we had a call yesterday just where we discussed it in great detail, but essentially you need to showcase the validity of your idea as opposed to stuff like कि हमारे packaging पे VR होगा, right? So that's the difference. It doesn't. So in a sentence, I can summarize it. At the UG level, your idea needs to look special and marketable. At the post MBA and MBA level, it's supposed to be a valid idea. It's supposed to be an executable idea, right? Something that you look at and you say, "Ha, I can make this work." Whereas at the UG level, they expect it to be all flowery and pretty, which is it's just a different format. It's not like worse or like I'm not saying ki corporate case comps are better and UG case comps are worse. It's just different. It's two different set of expectations.
So the
Okay.
next question would be, could you provide like a roadmap for the undergrad students like who are in their first semester and now they want to participate in case competitions, they want to get into this arena. Like how should they learn and which kind of competitions they should participate in, like more like a startup in which you are pitching your business plan, like that those kind of competitions, or like where you get a case problem and then you have to present a solution towards it. Like what kind of things should they do? What kind of
Okay, so
teammates should they
for
choose?
the fair. So for the UG level, na, first thing is your inter-college level case competitions are not going to add that much value to your CV, and you don't have access to the corporate level case competitions. So honestly, it's just for practice. Like your gain out of these case competitions is primarily exposure to a competition environment. That's it. So you can experiment with it. Like try all the varieties of case competitions. Try the startup pitching ones. Try the marketing ones. Try the consulting ones. Right, and of course your formula to winning is going to be different at the inter-college level because the expectation, as I told you earlier, is that document type thingy. So it's going to be a little different. But what it will give you is a lens of understanding a business. Another very major difference of corporate case comps versus UG case comps is that you have a massive focus on financials in B school level and corporate level case comps because at the end of the day, any idea is viable only if it's feasible financially. Whereas in your UG level case comps, you don't have that much of a focus on financials. So, and even in any startup pitch, like if you end up thinking while if you look at startup wale shows like Shark Tank and so on, you think it's a 15-minute pitch where you highlight a couple of things, but in reality, all of those shows have already had a behind the scenes evaluation, and then they let them on TV. So the financial evaluation is like your main thing for any startup, for anybody to give you money, right? They need to know that their investment is going to be secure and it has a possibility of growth. And it's not just going to be about, in very few cases, people end up investing in people. Like, okay, you as a person interest me and your experience leads me to believe that you'll be able to, generate revenue. But in most cases, they want to see results. And results means financials. So at the B school level, financials are going to be a huge focus for you. So I would suggest participate in all the case comps that you have. Participate, and as for teammates, choosing teammates, try to go with different teammates every time until, of course, if you find like a winning set of teammates, like every time you go, you're doing well with a certain set of teammates, then stick to them. But otherwise, try to always have a different set because that would then give you a lot of different challenges. Because let's say, for example, let's say Vanshika is participating in a bunch of case comps, and sometimes she pairs up with Shruti, sometimes she pairs up with me, sometimes she pairs up with someone else. So every teammate she has will have a different set of strengths, and then that would force her to look at different aspects of the case comp, right? Because if I say, okay, I'm good at finance, you look at everything else. So then she'll have to look at everything else, and that way she'll develop her own skills so that at the end of the day, like at the end of say 5 6 case comps, she'll also be able to realize what her strength is. So then she'll be able to say, okay, now I'm the finance person or I'm the marketing person. So explore case forms in all possibilities, inter-college, corporate ones if there are any available, company ones. So try your hand at those, but more so focus on the learnings you get out of it and try to correlate it with actual businesses, especially in the startup ones. Try to look at the financials a lot more, not just for winning case comps, but also for your understanding.
Okay. So, moving ahead, we all know you work in Tata. So, I would just like to ask you that how is the work culture at Tata? Is there work-life balance or it's hustle culture? कैसा है वहाँ पे सब कुछ?
See, the problem with that question is that given the vastness of the Tata Group, it's very different for different industries, different sectors, different companies. The Tata Group has what 117, 118 companies under it, right? And
Mhm.
it's different in all of those companies. Of course, there is a broader Tata culture that permeates all of these companies, and I would say like they have a set of core values that they try to adhere to, which is being very consumer focused and being very employee friendly, right? So these core values are followed across the group, and I would say like from a corporate standpoint, the Tata Group is a much better place to work at in terms of your work environment, the kind of people you meet. So it's a much more friendly and welcoming place. But in terms of work-life balance, it's again it depends on the stage in which that company is, the industry in which that company is. So let's say if you compare let's say a Titan to a Tata 1MG, you'll find that the Tata 1MG space is a far more hectic space because it's a sort of like an X startup, right? Like now it's evolved to a level where it can't really be called a startup. Like it's like calling Zomato a startup, right? So it's evolved to that level where it's moved beyond startup spaces. But at the same time, there is still a lot of hustle because they're still growing rapidly and they have a lot of spaces that they're expanding into. They're expanding to diagnostics, they're expanding to a lot of other spaces. So wherever there is a rapid expansion, you'll find that the culture is a little more towards hustle and towards hectic work hours, like 12 hours, 13 hours, and so on. Whereas if you go to any company that is a market leader in space, like for example, Titan is a market leader in space, right? Like we have watches, maybe have what 60-70% market share. Jewelry, में they're doing really well. So वो उतना hustle culture नहीं है. You'll find a much more balanced work life, like a 8 to 10 hours type situation. So, of course, all of this varies with season. Like within Titan itself, you'll find that in that October to December phase where you have Dhanteras, Diwali, festive sale, and all of that, it will be far more hectic. Whereas in your non-season, off-season time, it's way chiller. So it's dependent on the season, dependent on the industry. But all in all, if you compare the Tata Group as a whole to your typical consulting or other firms like product, of course, product is the chillest domain. Also, another thing is you can't evaluate a company's culture just based on okay, this company is chill, because different domains within that company will hold different cultures, subcultures within the company itself. So if you look at, say, let's take Tata Capital, right? So it's primarily a finance company, right? It is a finance company. So if you look at its finance, core finance teams, you might feel it's way more hectic than the marketing teams because it's a different job role, different style, different everything. So, or if you look at Air India, the airport operations and the operations team might be a little more hectic than the other teams. So that's the difference. But all in all, Tata Group, I would say 8 to 10 hours is the average across the group.
All right, right. Now we'll be moving towards the end of the podcast. We have three more questions for you. The first one is like you love to read novels, right? You love to read books, as you told in SRC ka meet also. So can you just give us three book recommendations to the audience that they should definitely read?
Okay. Okay, I'll give you three very different sets of books, like the different genres. One is this is a book that I read a while back, but then I've reread it a couple of times. I mean, to be fair, I've also read the Harry Potter series a couple of times now, so but I won't recommend that as a book to your audience, but book series to your audience. But I would say fiction mein All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. That is a great book to read if you're a person who enjoys fiction, which is also interlinked with history itself. So it's a period drama sort of book. If your audience is into that. Otherwise, if you're looking at the self-help sort of domain, I would say the 10-day MBA. It's a book. It's available on Amazon for like what 300, 400. The 10-day MBA. It's a decent book, right? So while of course there is no such thing as a 10-day MBA, but it does cover a lot of bases that will definitely help you when you go for an actual MBA. So that is one book. And third book. Let me check. I have a list on my phone of the books I've recently read. Let me just check. Because it keeps changing. My mood keeps changing, whatever genre I like at that time. So it keeps changing. So I don't want to give you just a genre books.
What's your favorite genre within fiction?
I don't really have a favorite genre. I would say, okay, thrillers are, of course, an evergreen area for me, like your typical Robin Hood type books, medical thrillers, mystery type books. That is, of course, my go-to, especially when I need to like relax. That is my go-to. But otherwise, if you're looking more for, a motivational / educational type book, because I mean, I'm guessing that's what your audience is looking for. So, 10-day MBA मैंने बोल दिया 10-day MBA is by just a sec. 10-day MBA, 10-day MBA. Yeah. So 10-day MBA is by Stephen.
So have you read The Silent Patient?
Yeah, that book is. And it's
Silent
right.
Patient. I don't remember the author's name, but it's like a medical thriller book. It's great. It's one of my favorite books. I don't really know if you would like reading it, but it's absolutely.
I haven't read it. Robin Cook is. Have you read Robin Cook books?
You might have read Agatha Christie as well. Agatha Christie.
Yeah, Agatha Christie तो school में library में था तो उससे ही yeah, but it's a good, yeah, it's a good series.
Well, actually, the first person who is suggesting us fictional books as well. Otherwise, all the others just give us self-help books.
So I'll tell you why it's not self-help books. Yeah, honestly, at this point, self-help books have become it's a saturated book genre, and like you can't really find good ones anymore. Honestly, of course, a few stand out, but the problem with self-help books is unless they're actually giving you real data, real facts that can help you along the journey, to me, it's you're watching a Sandeep Maheshwari podcast. That's what you're doing. Like, that's your right. So I mean, if you're looking at how to become successful in 10 days, and oh, you wake up at 7 a.m. and do yoga. If that's helping you out, then I think you could have done without it. Like वो अपने आप ही उतना हो जाना चाहिए. But I mean, of course, there is a market for it. There is an audience for it. But तभी चल रहा है. But still, not that is not my type. I would say self-help. So if you're looking at self-help books, they should add some hard value, right? So it should give you facts or data that you didn't have before and actually helps you. Otherwise, it's just a motivational. It's a TEDx talk at that point. So
Okay, so if you could go back to your college days, is there anything you would do differently?
UG or MBA?
UG.
Both. Tell us both.
Okay.
Both. Okay. MBA may I think I would say like I would focus a little more on academics. So during my MBA time, I realized that see finance wasn't going to take me in any case because I didn't have a finance background. Consulting like my grades and also I understood the work-life balance, the salary. Like once I understood all of it, I knew that I want to go to marketing gen man. So since marketing gen man doesn't have a high requirement of grades on your CV, I ended up like ignoring my MBA acads a little too much. And that put me in a sort of like a pressurized zone at the ending of my MBA journey because those time I needed to score well to have like an average CG. So I would say spend a little more time with the books for MBA. For UG, UG, I don't think I would do anything differently because my set of like my focus was very different. I was fully into my sports career back then. So I think I would do the exact same thing, make the same mistakes. I don't think I would make any changes in my UG journey.
All right.
Okay.
All right, guys. So this was all we had for today. And if you have any more questions left for Anindya, you can drop them in the comment section. We would love to take them up the next time we have him again. We're hoping we'll have an episode 2 if you guys show some love. If you like the video, just like, comment, and you can even share this with your friends if you feel this could be helpful. So yeah, Anindya, it was great having you. Thank you for showing up today.
Thanks for having me.
Right. All right. Bye bye.